If you found your dad dead on the shower floor, covered in blood, vomit, and boils, and then got shipped off to a foster home under the care of a complete lunatic who wants to use your body for a demonic ritual to resurrect her dead daughter, what would you do? Less than a year ago, Laura's daughter, Kathy, was tragically a victim of running by the pool. She slipped on the wet pavement, bopped her head on the corner, and landed face down in the water. Upon seeing her lifeless daughter floating in the shallow end, Laura did what any good mother would do.
Bring wood and oil.
Dump her daughter's corpse into the meat freezer and search the dark web for a way to resurrect her. Crazy enough, she stumbled upon a website named blackangeltapes.net, selling a supposedly cursed snuff tape of a resurrection ritual being performed. They were nice enough to throw up a trailer. It's crudely filmed and performed by Russians in some hole on a potato VHS camera, with zero evidence of it being successful. I'd expect nothing less. Let's check out the helpful product info. Step-by-step instructions. No more than 12 months deceased. Summon at your own risk. Partial consumption can result in soul manifestation. Through the host, the deceased can speak, walk, No more than 12 months deceased. This is most likely because the flesh that the TARI would consume would be nearly fully decomposed by then. Kathy, on the other hand, was thrown in the freezer, which means Laura might have more time. However, it could be a spiritual thing instead, and since Laura can't confirm what the timeline is based on, and because she's losing her mind with grief, she needs to get moving on the resurrection ASAP. Summon at your own risk. No shit. Partial consumption can result in soul manifestation. Is this saying that the TARI only needs a couple nibbles? Cool. I guess that's less disgusting. Through the host, the deceased can speak, walk. Not exactly selling it here. Okay, they can speak and walk. Pretty low bar. Laura needs her daughter back permanently. She wants her daughter to tell her what happened at school while she brushes her hair, not some zombie host twitching and shuffling around, painfully muttering the fragmented ramblings of a half-dead, tortured spirit's echoes. And that's at best. There's no way to actually confirm the ritual works as intended, and the demon's not just mimicking the deceased. Worth a shot, I suppose. If it turns out to be fake or inaccurately described, you can always just drown her again and send the tape back. So there I was, out walking all by my lonesome late at night through a dark alley, with my Raycon Everyday Classic earbuds snug in my ears thanks to their optimized gel tips for a custom comfortable fit. I must have been out all night. Thank goodness my Raycons have 8 hours of playtime and 32 hours of battery in the case, because around that late hour, my Raycon's awareness mode picked up faint scurrying sounds behind me, enhanced the signal, and fed it straight into my combat processor. Without thinking, I activated my weapon system, spun 180 degrees, and aimed into my workspace. Nothing but darkness. So, using the earbuds touch controls, I cranked the volume up to listen in. Once again, awareness mode caught a muffled whisper from inside a nearby dumpster. It sounded like he said, "Kiss me, kiss me." Now, I already have tinnitus and don't need that wee getting worse. So with a long press, I switched my Raycons to active noise cancellation mode before initiating my fire solution, aka mag dumping into the trash, or in this case, human trash. Afterwards, another long press put me back into bass mode, so I could keep listening to my favorite artists in rich, deep fidelity. Let that be a lesson to you nerds. Raycons save lives and deliver excellent audio quality at a great price. I've legit been using my Raycons for everything. For ages. They sound great, they never die, and now they come in new colors like mint and rose gold. You can even get colorful everyday protective cases to keep them safe from drops. So if you're in the market for new earbuds, go to buyraycon.com/nerd for 20% off fan favorite everyday earbuds classic, and support the channel in the process. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. What? No returns? No refunds? No 30-day window where I could drop this cursed tape made in the basement of a Russian hostel off at my local Whole Foods using a QR code? Laura doesn't give a if there's a 99.99% chance it's a scam by paid actors. If there's even a 0.01 chance that she can bring her daughter back, it's worth the Bitcoin. The blackangeltapes.net site does say that it's verified, and why would they lie? Laura hurriedly inputs her delivery address, sends the scratch, and orders express priority. Ripping open the box like it's Christmas morning, she shoves the tape into her VHS player. Thankfully, the video's subtitled so she doesn't have to learn Russian. Apparently, Laura needs a host for the TARI demon to possess. She then has to feed the demon-possessed host the remains of the deceased, and finally, compel the demon to vomit those remains into the mouth of a human host who's died in exactly the same way as the deceased. And that supposedly will bring her back. Laura, under the alias username Pom Pom, which was the name of her dead taxidermy dog, asks the seller some questions because, obviously, she has no idea what the she's doing. Surprisingly, the seller's quite responsive. She asks how long she can keep the TARI, and how long it should spend with the old body. The seller replies, "You really should starve the host for 3 days before summoning. Then once summoned, give it a couple of hours with the old body, and then you should do it straight away." He further comments that you should not summon the demon and then make it wait, or it'll get angrier and hungrier the longer that it's kept from feeding. She's got the tape, some additional instructions, and her daughter in the freezer. All Laura needs to complete the ritual is a host to possess with the TARI demon. Then find and drown an unsuspecting young girl whose body is suitable for Kathy's soul to be puked into. Then they can frolic through the daisies, get triple stacked ice cream cones, and live happily ever after. Because, as we know, absolutely no negative unintended consequences could possibly arrive from summoning demons. I'm going to break down the mistakes both Laura and the foster children made, what they should have done, and how to beat the TARI demon in, bring her back. Let's break down Laura's plan. First, she needs a host for the TARI demon to possess. To that end, she abducts a local boy named Connor Bird. Impatient to see if the ritual's even real, she quickly gets to work, starving the boy for a few days before summoning the demon into him using instructions from the tape. Using white paint made of bone ash, salt, or some concoction of occult powders, she meticulously paints a large circle around her house. This circle is like an electric fence for the demon. If the TARI-possessed Connor breaches the circle, he will begin to expunge the demon. Since Connor's strongly possessed by the TARI won't cross the white ash line voluntarily. Because of this, Laura stupidly lets him roam free on the premises. With the demon summoned and relatively contained, Laura now needs a host for Kathy's soul. Ideally, a girl of similar age and build to make the transition less traumatic. In Laura's search, she found a girl named Piper, who's partially sighted, which is actually a near-perfect match because her own daughter was also blind. In order to isolate Piper from her family, Laura plans to murder her father and make it look like an OD, knowing that he had recently finished chemo and might have access to sedatives or narcotics, which could be blamed for accidental misuse. With the father out of the picture, both Piper and her brother would be sent into the care of social services to be assigned to a foster parent, since they're not adults yet. Laura worked for 20 years as a counselor in the foster care system, giving her strong connections and inside knowledge that she could use to maneuver Piper's placement into her own home. Ideally, Laura hopes to persuade social services to split the siblings up so that she only gets Piper and not Andy too, since Andy would be an obstacle to a resurrection ritual. Andy has had a troubled past, and Laura believes that she can leverage his juvenile record to keep him out of her household and secure Piper for herself. Once she has Piper alone, her plan is to drown Piper in the pool, feed Kathy's remains to the TARI demon, and then compel the TARI to regurgitate Kathy's soul into Piper's body as a new vessel. When Kathy awakens inside Piper's body, Laura would usher her back inside, then return to drown Connor and bury him in the garden. Naturally, Kathy might be a little perturbed about being resurrected inside another girl's body, lying next to her own decomposing corpse, and realizing her mom is a total psycho. But nothing a little chamomile tea and heavy psychological manipulation couldn't fix right up. Laura's plan is actually pretty solid, but she botched it from the jump. Her impatience caused her to prematurely summon the demon before she even had custody of a future host for Kathy's soul. This put her plan on an exceedingly aggressive timeline. As the seller said, once the demon is summoned, you need to perform the ritual immediately. Otherwise, the demon's gonna get hangry, and you don't want to see a TARI when they get hangry. Laura's got the tape. Kathy's in the freezer, she's got time. No need to add the heat of an abduction and off demon walking around your house. Yet. Save all of that until after you've successfully isolated Piper from her family and can perform the ritual unhindered. After all, you may still have to deal with her brother, given the high likelihood that they'd flat out refuse to be split up after becoming orphans. While Laura could kill Andy and make his death look like an accident too, it could compromise her reputation as a foster guardian and result in Piper being removed from her custody. Don't get me wrong, it's still an option. If Laura managed to make Andy's death appear as a result of PTSD and poor coping mechanisms he's secretly engaged in, she might be able to argue that she should remain Piper's guardian, especially if she'd already made a significant positive impact on Piper, who might then vouch to stay with her. You certainly don't want Andy and Piper getting spooked and making a distress call before the big night because some crazy possessed demon kid's eating knives, tables, and making animal noises, whom you're allowing to roam around the premises freely for some insane reason. Lock his ass up in the shed and stuff a ball gag in his mouth. I don't know. Maybe the demon's a very sensitive little fella and needs some TLC before his big day. Now, Laura's thinking that if she's Piper's foster mom and Kathy takes over Piper's body, nobody would be any the wiser. It's not like Piper's dead. She's just having a weird identity disorder where she's acting like her foster mom's dead daughter. Obviously very unhealthy, and it's possible CPS would get involved at that point if the foster program had checked in and found out about this. Other than that, with the dad dead from an initially presumed OD, the brother off with a different foster family, it's the perfect crime. I thought about how she could bypass all of this by simply abducting Piper and chaining her in the basement. Then she could abduct Connor, starve him for 3 days, summon the demon inside him, tranquilize Piper, feed Kathy's corpse to the TARI, and once the TARI had sufficiently fed on her body and consumed her soul, drown Piper in the pool and compel the demon to puke her soul into Piper's mouth. The problem with this plan is that while she benefits from having no connection to her victim, she also has no connection to her victim, Piper. If Piper's reported abducted, Laura can't be seen with her. Problematic for her rekindled mother-daughter relationship. If Laura's gonna be shopping at the mall with Kathy-possessed Piper, she needs their relationship to be legit, and her foster plan is about as good as it gets. With the demon already summoned, Laura enacts the next phase of her plan, break into their home and poison Phil's pills. When Piper and Andy arrive home from school, the shower's running, but their dad Phil is not responding to them. Andy rushes to unlock the door using a knife. It's not a pretty scene. Their dad is laid out on the tile covered in blood and vomit.
You! Come here! Breathe into his mouth!
The paramedics arrive and load him into the ambulance. That's actually pretty funny. In the background, the police question Piper. She says he just finished chemo. He was supposed to be better. The surprising nature of their dad's death makes it hard to say what would cause Phil to vomit bloody yellow chunks like that and collapse dead on the bathroom floor. Chemo-related ulcers combined with pain pills, even mixed with other drugs, are unlikely to result in such a violent death as far as I'm aware. Most likely, Phil ingested something corrosive or ulcerogenic, leading to catastrophic upper GI bleed, violent vomiting of blood and bile, and collapse on the bathroom floor. Laura most likely ground up sodium hydroxide and packed it into his pills, swapping them out like Nacho did in Breaking Bad. This would definitely be detected by the medical examiner, who would run a toxicology report, though it might take a week to get the results back. And even if this incited an investigation due to suspected foul play, it's unlikely that they would immediately connect it to Laura as a primary suspect. After all, why would she have a reason to kill their dad? I suppose you could argue that she wanted a daughter of sorts, but that's a pretty big stretch. Yet again, Laura's likely to get away with murder. With the kids now entering the foster program, it's time for phase 3, take custody of Piper. It all goes according to plan. Laura uses her connections with Wendy, the social services caseworker assigned to Andy and Piper, and manages to secure first dibs on fostering Piper.
I've talked to an amazing foster mum called Laura. You're gonna love her.
There's just one kink. As expected, Andy and Piper adamantly refuse to be split up. If Laura wants Piper, she has no choice but to accept them as a package deal and then figure out how to get rid of Andy as soon as possible. So plan B on phase 3, discredit Andy by making him appear unreliable, unstable, and abusive. She wants to build a case for social services to see him as a danger to Piper and unfit to remain as her guardian, ultimately hoping to separate him from Piper so that she can move forward with her ritual without his interference. To be honest, I don't see how she can accomplish this within a day or two. Not with that hellspawn shuffling around, chewing on her house cat like it's a corn on the cob. It's absurdly more likely that Andy and Piper would make a complaint to Wendy in social services about Laura's up supposed nephew, resulting in her being tossed out of the program and likely into jail. There is no way that she doesn't end up being forced to just kill Andy. Guess we'll find out. Andy and Piper arrive, and after they all get acquainted, she introduces them to her dog Pom Pom.
What have we got here? A comedian.
Well, that's off-putting. While she takes a phone call, Andy and Piper go check out the backyard and find a weird shirtless kid standing in the empty pool grappling with Laura's house cat. Shaved head with a mark under his eye, mean mugging the out of him. Laura claims that he's her nephew named Ollie, who's become selectively mute since Kathy died. Strangely, she lies to Piper right in front of Andy's face that Ollie has curly red hair. Laura's trying to act like she's being empathetic to Ollie by saying that he still has long red curly beautiful hair and tries to goad Andy into going along with her.
She's smiling at you.
I still think Andy should mention to Piper how creepy this kid is, and have a conversation about why her supposed nephew is living with them too. Wouldn't Andy and Piper have gotten a brief on Laura's household before the move-in? If so, they should have known about Laura also fostering a mentally unwell child with behavioral issues, and about the mom's very recent loss of her daughter, which is sure to project some serious trauma onto them. I'm sure Andy and Piper are lacking options, but this doesn't seem like a very helpful or rehabilitative environment for them, especially after witnessing and being orphaned by their dad's horrific death. My questions as Andy would be, why is Ali staying here? What happened to his parents? How long ago did Kathy die? Honestly, it doesn't matter what her answers would be, because all of them would be bad. Ollie is supposedly Laura's actual nephew, who she's posing Connor Bird as. Either the real Ollie is alive and somewhere else, not at Laura's house, or he's dead. In either case, that means this kid is not Ollie. She's lying, and something is very f***ed up here. here. I'd call Wendy straight away and ask her what the hell she was thinking, surprising us with a foster parent who's already struggling to manage a highly disturbed child who's not even her own, and who clearly has issues letting go, as evidenced by her stuffed dog Pom-Pom, the taped up rug for her dead daughter, and the fact that she's obviously nowhere near done grieving, considering Kathy must have died fairly recently. I'd snap a few pics of him, then ask Wendy about this Ollie kid, who he is, what happened, and why he's living there. Wendy knows who Ollie is, but if Andy told her the kid lives there now, why? Where are his parents? And if he showed her a picture, Wendy would immediately know that that is not Ollie. This kid certainly warrants a wellness check by CPS, because he is not well. I don't think it's unreasonable to have a little chat with Wendy here. Even though she clearly thinks Andy's a troublemaker, I think Piper corroborating his story would certainly be enough to get Wendy off her blow the lid off this whole thing. I still don't get why Laura's allowing Ollie to roam around for this very reason. He's risking her whole operation needlessly. It's an abducted, demon-possessed child. Just chain him up in the basement for f***'s sake. Andy heads back to his car to grab his stuff and notices the thick white painted line encircling what looks like the entire property. Nothing to scoff at alone, but certainly something that I would ask about and would get added to my compounding pile of weird Laura's house list. Laura takes them to their rooms. Piper gets Kathy's perfectly preserved room, while Andy gets a literal closet with a mattress thrown in. Nothing weird about this. There's a shot of Laura checking the weather app on her phone, showing evening showers in a couple of days. This is a bit of a clue as to why Laura seems to be taking her time with Andy and Piper. In addition to trying to wedge Andy out, she's also waiting for the rain to fill in the pool up enough to drown Piper in. But like, why wasn't the pool filled ahead of time? You've got the demon, you've got the girl, you've got Kathy's body. You should have had the pool ready to go. And as for Andy, send him off into town with $100 for groceries and do the deed while he's gone. Sure, there'd be some conflict when he got back, but by then Piper would be long gone, Kathy would be possessing her body, and in the inevitable confrontation when Andy loses his Piper acting like Laura's daughter, all Laura would need to do is convince Kathy to say that she's Piper and tell social services that this kid named Andy has mentally lost it with crazy accusations. That'd probably get Andy split off in no time. As for Ollie, aka Connor Bird, well, let's just say he'd be oozing down the drain by then, and any evidence that he existed would be gone, aside from Andy's text to his friend about some weird kid, which Laura could easily deny. Which also brings up an obvious issue with her plan. What if Andy has pictures and evidence on his phone that he starts to accrue with all the weird stuff happening with Ollie and Laura? Don't you worry, because Laura has an overly complex, needlessly long solution. It's a bit of a two birds with one stone approach, too. Her plan is to drug Andy's creatine drink with sedatives, so he's knocked out cold at night. Then sneak into his room, open his eyes to unlock the biometric security on his phone, and delete all the evidence Andy has collected. Then while he's sedated, she'll dump her own urine on his crotch just to f with him, destabilize him mentally, and humiliate him in front of Piper to make it look like he's not doing so well. It's a subtle, sneakily crafted manipulation tactic, but I don't think it would work nearly as well as she thinks. The PTSD-induced slow, warm release bedwetting I can understand, but I would know if I was being drugged with heavy sedatives. We're not talking about NyQuil here. Laura's cranking his eyelids open and dumping urine onto him. There's no shot he doesn't feel woozy and hungover as hell, especially when it's highly coincidental that all of this started the night that he arrived at Laura's. The sedation is also completely antithetical to PTSD, which typically causes insomnia, anxiety, nightmares, and restlessness. Meanwhile, Andy's out cold, sleeping like he's dead, probably getting more REM and deep sleep than most people with light baggage and loving families. A little odd, considering he's getting heart palpitations just looking at the shower, not to mention waking up and finding all the pictures, notes, and messages about Ollie mysteriously deleted. I think I'd quickly figure out what's going on here, but Andy's a bit slow. Must be the drugs. Phil's funeral's the next morning. Knowing she'll be gone for a couple of hours, Laura drops another question into the blackangeltapes.net message boards. As Pom-Pom, she says, I need to leave the host at home for a couple of hours. How do I keep it subdued? The seller says, try like 10 waning crescent movements, but only anti-clockwise. That should keep it still for a bit. Or, hear me out, go to Home Depot and buy some 3/8 inch steel chains. Laura ultimately just ends up locking him in a room. At the funeral, Andy says his goodbye, though he's unable to look at his deceased father. Piper says her goodbye too. Laura says hers as well, and secretly snips some of Phil's hair. Her plan is to hold on to Phil's hair. Then, late at night when Andy's drugged creatine shake is kicking in, feed it to the TARI. This will allow the demon to mimic their dad's soul and voice to further psychologically torment Andy. Outside, Laura expertly drives the wedge deeper between Andy and Piper. Earlier, she noticed Andy lied to Piper about their father looking good, when in reality, he couldn't even bring himself to look at him. Now, Laura chooses this exact moment in front of Piper to expose the lie in an empathetic, non-accusatory way. She gently tells Andy that she can't let him leave without actually looking at his father and saying goodbye. Piper gets angry, especially because she says grapefruit, which is their secret code word meaning, are you telling me the truth? You better not be lying. It's a word that they came up with after their mother died, used whenever one of them wants absolute honesty from the other. For Piper, discovering that Andy lied about how their father looked, even after she invoked the grapefruit word, feels like a serious betrayal. Andy gives in and gets coerced into kissing his father.
You should kiss him goodbye. It's a custom.
Despite his massive inhibitory stress response.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. I've got you.
Back home, the TARI fists his way through the glass.
That's a lot of blood. That's a lot of blood.
Cutting his hands and arms, and proceeds to eat a bunch of chickens. When they arrive back home, at least the TARI has the decency to stay out in the yard while they get ceremoniously hammered. At this point, Laura's lost track of him, thinking he's still locked up in her room. By the time there's a chicken in the kitchen, they're all so completely wasted that nothing registers. With Piper passed out, Andy and Laura have a little heart-to-heart, where Laura reveals that Wendy told her Andy had hit Piper in the past. Andy admits that his dad never liked him, neglected and abused him while loving and caring for Piper. This caused resentment toward Piper, which ultimately led to him hitting her. He says it was a long time ago, he made up for it and it would never happen again. In Laura's head, she's already thinking about how she can leverage this information to make Andy look like a degenerate piece of shit who hits his sister. But that's gonna have to wait, because she suddenly discovers that Ollie's been out and about this whole time, munching on the chickens and her cat. Laura bathes him and tends to his wounds. For some insane reason, she asks the TARI if it's still inside Connor, like that's not completely obvious. In response, the TARI uses the force to turn on the faucet and smash out the mirror. Then starts making cat noises after taking a bite out of Junkman. Okay, it's still inside Connor. It's here that Laura realizes something. The TARI has powers outside of resurrection. It can seemingly affect things using telekinesis. Not sure to what extent, but might want to get going on the ritual pretty soon before this TARI decides to brain burst you. See, this is why you don't f with demons. Here I was, saying that I'd have chained this thing up in my basement, not knowing it might be able to force rip my nuts off like a monkey. Also, Laura really needs to make sure that this thing is fully starved. Seriously do not want the TARI's distended gut to be half full of Kathy and the other half full of chickens and flies when it pukes up into Piper's mouth. Or else you're gonna be stuck with one f***ed up chicken bug daughter. The next morning, Laura humiliates Andy in front of Piper over his piss-drenched pants.
Piss.
Before abandoning him to go girl shopping with Piper to pick out a new outfit for Kathy. Hold up. So Laura actually thought it was a good idea to leave Andy alone with Ollie so that she could go girl shopping. Dumb. Obviously, Andy lets his curiosity get the best of him and goes to check on Ollie. Weird, the door's locked from the outside. Probably because he's a disturbed motherfucker. Which is also why you shouldn't bust him out with your knife trick. Why on earth are you now showing kindness and willingness to chill with this kid that you've been calling creepy since you got here? Whatever. Andy brings him down to the kitchen and hands the mentally ill child a fruit-stuck knife. What could go wrong here?
Ollie! Hey, Ollie, stop!
Oh my god. What the f? If you're watching this on YouTube, consider yourself lucky that you didn't get brain scarred by that face gore. Needless to say, Ollie needs to go to the ER, then to a plastic surgeon, and then straight into intense psychological therapy. Right when Andy and Ollie reach the white ash line, Ollie goes feral, violently resisting crossing it and looking like he's in the middle of an exorcism. He's literally convulsing, vomiting, and it looks like a chest burster is about to explode through his belly.
Help me.
Laura and Piper arrive just then. Laura grabs Ollie and rushes him back inside, ignoring Andy's protests that Ollie needs to go to a hospital immediately. Piper consoles Andy in the kitchen while Laura plays EDM rave music to cover up Ollie's screams. Andy doesn't tell Piper anything. He doesn't call Wendy. He doesn't call 911. He doesn't grab Piper and leave because this household is not very safe and rehabilitative. You know what he does? Takes a shower. So after all this time of bathing under the backyard spigot because he gets the quakes at the mere sight of a shower, now, after witnessing Ollie's mutilation, it's suddenly relaxing. Piper's so in the dark about all this, and also incredibly naive, that she actually gets persuaded by Laura that Ollie doesn't need to go to the hospital. In fact, Laura proclaims that she's more worried about her cat being missing, prompting Piper to go hiking in the nearby woods calling Junkman's name. Insane. What happened to Grapefruit? How is her cat more important than figuring out what the hell just happened in vivid detail so you aren't trudging around like a little sheep? Andy's steamy showers, not as therapeutic as he'd hoped. His dead dad makes a surprise visit to warn him.
She'll die in the rain.
Perfectly cryptic. Thank you. Bro could have said, Laura plans to drown Piper, and it would have been infinitely more helpful. Andy gets spooked, tries to run, and because he's standing on wet bathroom tile, he slips and cracks his noggin. Now, this was all as Laura had masterfully planned, you see. Before Andy hopped in the shower, Laura fed Ollie those clippings of Phil's hair that she had tucked away in her purse. She knew that since the Tari can mimic whomever soul it feeds on, she could use it to torment Andy psychologically, hoping it would cause a mental break, I suppose. However, this little plan of hers relies on some steep assumptions. One, that Andy would be taking a particularly steamy shower, so steamy that it created an almost dreamscape for the Tari. Two, that the Tari did in fact have the power to create strong enough hallucinations in its target. I don't believe this has ever been confirmed, though it's certainly possible that Laura had experienced induced hallucinations from the Tari being pissed at her, thus incepting the idea for this plan. 3, that the Tari wouldn't do something stupid like warn Andy, which it did. 4, that Andy would have this specific reaction. In a parallel scenario, Andy doesn't run. He stays and yells at his dad, who's actually Ollie, until the hallucination finally breaks because the Tari's a hungry, chaotic little bastard, revealing his true form. Or Andy quickly, yet carefully, catwalks out of the bathroom and takes a breath, then once composed, opens the door again to reassure himself that it was just a daymare, thus revealing Ollie to be the culprit. In one of these scenarios, the Tari's rather loose lips sink Laura's ship. Laura drops Andy off at the hospital, then later visits him when he wakes up. Andy's none the wiser, thinking it was just his PTSD talking. Ordinarily, I don't think the hospital would run a drug test if he merely slipped in the bathroom. But when Andy showed up, they had to hold him down while he was screaming that Piper was going to die. In this case, I would think that they'd run additional tests, in which case they would certainly find evidence of strong sedatives in his system. Sedatives he's not prescribed for. It's likely Laura, having guardianship over him, would have refused the tests. But if the doctors deemed it medically necessary, they'd have the authority to overrule her. Unfortunately, no tests were run, and Andy has to stay there another day so the doctors can keep tabs on his concussion. And not one time during his stay at the hospital does he bring up Laura's nephew's horrific condition to the hospital staff. With Andy out of the picture, Laura brings Piper into the shed to feel up Kathy's corpse.
Oh my god, what is it? Just meat.
Okay, why are you making me feel meat? Piper, being an absurdly gullible moron, thinks literally nothing of this. Let me get this straight. Laura takes you into her shed, puts her dead daughter's sweater on you, ties your hair up like Kathy, asks you to call her mom, then guides your hand across meat in a freezer that suspiciously would have felt like a leg, then clothing fabric, then fingers. And you think nothing of this. Okay. When Andy finally returns from the hospital later the next day, what does he do? Works out and drinks his creatine, of course. Laura, desperate to get rid of Andy for good, blasts herself with Andy's Axe body spray, sneaks into Piper's room while she's sleeping, punches her square in her good eye, then quickly runs back out. The next morning, Piper's in Laura's embrace, accusing Andy of hitting her while she was asleep. Not terribly unreasonable, given Andy's had a rough go of it recently, and he's hit her in the past, though that was a long time ago. It is a little odd that Piper would have smelled Andy so strongly, though maybe not, as Andy did work out late at night, wouldn't have taken a shower, and would have probably used deodorant instead. Laura piles on, accusing Andy of being violently hopped up on testosterone, and also accusing him of killing her cat. Andy flips, especially upon seeing all these bloody standing out in the rain. It nearly knocks Laura out over the accusations. When Andy tries to take a picture of Ollie, Laura freaks, grabs his phone, and throws it across the room. Laura relentlessly acts like she's Piper's true guardian, shoving him away when he tries to get Piper to leave with him.
Come on.
Even when Andy tells Piper grapefruit, meaning he honest to God did not hit her.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
And something is very wrong with Laura, Piper still takes her side. Frustrated and fed up, he says "F it" and leaves to go pay Wendy from social services a visit. To me, this is a ridiculous failure of Andy to properly convey the situation to Piper, understand the danger, and protect his blind sister who simply doesn't have the vision to see for herself what's going on. It's also a ridiculous failure for Piper to take Laura's side after knowing her for all of 3 days, and upon hearing Andy invoke their safe word.
Grapefruit.
If Andy had communicated in detail anything that had happened up to this point, Piper would have been a lot more skeptical of her. In any case, were I Andy, knowing what I know about this household, I am not leaving without Piper. Either she's coming, or I'm staying and calling the cops because something stinks bad here. Yeah, she threw his phone in it, tried to break it, but I'm sure it still works even if the screen's broken. Though with the latest Gorilla Glass, I bet the phone's perfectly fine. He didn't even go pick it up and try to snap a pic of Ollie again and send it to Wendy, or try dialing 911. Had he done this, much of what's to come would have not happened. At the social services center, Andy sees a picture of a missing boy named Connor Bird, who looks identical to Ollie. He storms into Wendy's office, yelling for her to call the cops and send them to Laura's house because she kidnapped a child. Wendy picks up the phone and starts dialing Laura. Thank God Andy stops her dumb ass, because Piper is currently in danger, and exposing her could force Laura to do something drastic. Unfortunately, their new plan is for Wendy to do a wellness check on Laura. A wellness check with just the two of them? When Andy is adamant that the missing boy in the poster on the wall was abducted by Laura. No, the cops need to be sent to her home now. Meanwhile, Laura sent Piper off to play a game, and it's a good thing too, because the TARI absolutely demolished the house thanks to its insatiable hunger. I mean, it ate the table. Laura locks the TARI up in the shed and madly cleans the place up to get rid of any evidence of her wrongdoing. Wendy walks up the door politely asking to have a look around the house, while Andy heads back around to the shed. He knows that there's something up, and knows Laura most likely hid Ollie in there. So he picks up a heavy pot, smashes the lock off, and oh sh**, it is worse than he could have possibly imagined.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me!
Ollie's gone full demon mode, blood-red eyes, chewing up dead Kathy's face. Andy yells for Wendy to come check it out. At this point, Laura's basically dropped her facade, sobbing that she can save Kathy. Wendy has a look for herself, and they both try to run back to her car. Maybe your car idles quietly and the rain masked whatever engine noise there was, but damn. I feel like with a little more situational awareness when running back out to the front of the house, you could have seen her in the car, poised to run your over. Laura gets out and holds Andy's face down in a puddle, drowning him. Then drags Wendy's and Andy's corpses back into the house. Not sure why she didn't just drag them off to the side of the driveway, like into the wooded trees. Dragging them into the house seems like it would cause significantly more problems, and a hell of a mess. She then picks Piper up and takes her back home. Inside, Piper hears Andy calling to her.
Piper.
Andy?
And follows his voice. When she touches his head, it's immediately apparent that this is not Andy. Piper asks Laura who this person is who sounded exactly like Andy, and Laura replies that it's just Ollie. Piper then asks what color Ollie's hair is, as if that's the crux of the weirdness. This is where Laura makes a stupid mistake. She says his hair is red and curly. She could have maintained continuity and just said red and curly, but she'd just given him a buzz cut. Laura literally saw Piper touching Ollie's head. By saying curly, she's providing information that directly contradicts what Piper just felt. And sure enough, Piper gets spooked and makes a run for it. She heads straight for the front door, but it's locked, so she ducks into the adjacent bathroom. The very place where Laura, in her infinite wisdom, decided to stash Andy's dead body.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Inside, Piper reaches around and feels the body, his hair, his braces. It hits her all at once. It's Andy. Horrified, she yells grapefruit. In the silence, she realizes that Andy's dead. Great, so not only did Laura make a total mess, getting incriminating evidence all over the house for when someone inevitably comes to check on Wendy and Andy, she also enabled the TARI to get a bite out of Andy, allowing it to mimic him, which spooked Piper even more. And on top of all that, she hid Andy's body in the bathroom right by the front door, one of the most frequently used rooms in the house. Genius. Laura unlocks the door.
I've got to tell you a secret. I'm gonna drown you in the pool now, love.
And when Piper tries to run again, she knocks herself out on a pole. Laura drags her over to the pool and attempts to drown her. But when Piper screams "Mom," something inside Laura breaks. She almost hears her own daughter and can't go through with it. Piper escapes the pool, but gets attacked by the TARI. She knees him in his distended bubble gut and flees onto the nearby road where she's picked up by some good Samaritans. Piper's knee must have knocked some of the demon out of Connor because he regains enough lucidity and control over his own body to force himself over the white ash boundary, expelling the TARI and freeing young Connor Bird from his hell. Connor's later rescued by the police, and Laura's found in her pool, holding Kathy's body. I can only imagine how messed up poor Connor is after all this. And Piper, burdened with terrible survivor's guilt for the rest of her life. All this trauma, just for Laura to get cold feet right at the end. Kind of a shame if you ask me. I wanted to see Kathy take over Piper. Ultimately, because of all of Laura's rookie mistakes and Andy's totally reasonable motive and capability to simply send Wendy a picture of Ollie, I think the Tari demon in Bring Her Back was beaten. Moral of the story, if you're gonna use a demon to resurrect your dead loved ones, follow the instructions.